A reading from the 8th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Matthew. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." Immediately he was cleaned of his leprosy. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. "Lord," he said, "my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly." Jesus said to him, "Shall I come and heal him?" The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and that one, 'Come,' and he comes. I say to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed, and said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subject of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done just as you had believed it would." And his servant was healed at that moment.
On first considering the reading for the day, I wondered why the two accounts were linked, other than the fact that both were of Jesus' healing ministry. On thinking about it, however, there are strong connections and they raise many interesting questions. First of all, let's think about the centurion. He was an officer in the Roman army with 100 soldiers under him. Based in Capernaum, he was part of the powerful occupying force. He would have been secure in the knowledge of the invincibility and preeminence of Rome, with its subjugation of much of the known world. So how, we might think, had the centurion heard of Jesus, and not just heard of him, but come to a belief in him? Jesus and his disciples would have been just one of a group of itinerant preachers in the country, many of them undoubtedly trying to stir up rebellion against the occupying force. Perhaps the centurion and his men had been tasked with keeping an eye on these groups. So we get the impression of this centurion probably standing on the outside of the crowds who flocked to hear and be healed by Jesus. On the outside, but clearly listening and obviously moved by what Jesus said and what he did. We find that the centurion cared for his servant, who might even have been Jewish. In fact, he cared so deeply that he sought help from Jesus for the paralyzed man who was in pain. So he was a kind-hearted and a compassionate man. Having sought out Jesus, we find that not only is the centurion kind-hearted and compassionate, he's also courteous in the way he speaks to Jesus. He doesn't demand that Jesus heals his servant, an attitude you might expect from an officer in the conquering army. On the contrary, he's humble in his request. Does the centurion feel his own sinfulness when he's moved to say, "I do not deserve to have you come under my roof"? The Romans believed in a whole family of gods and goddesses who helped shape the everyday lives of people and who very often behaved among themselves like spoiled children. In addition, Romans were taught to believe that their past emperors were more than human. That's the meaning of the word Augustus. So it's fascinating to speculate on what might have made this staunch upholder of the supremacy of everything Rome turn to Christ. The overriding fact, which Jesus points out, is a man's faith. He didn't need to take Jesus to his home. Just say the word, he says, and my servant will be healed. The centurion went on to talk about how he, like Jesus, was a man under authority, with soldiers under him. He issues orders and expects them to be obeyed, as he himself obeys the orders of those over him. So he recognized that Jesus was not only a man with authority, but he knew that Jesus was himself answerable to a higher authority, the authority of God. The perceptiveness of that remark is, when you think of it, amazing. I might be wrong, but I don't think that any of the disciples appreciated that Jesus, in his human form, felt that he was under the authority of God. After all, Jesus said, "Not my will, but yours be done," in his agony in the Garden of Gethsemane. However much we like to think that we are autonomous beings, beholden to no one, it's just not true. As children, we're under the authority of our parents. When we become adults, we are under the authority of our employers. Even though we might elect our governments, we're still under the authority of the law. The fact that we're under the supreme authority of a caring, compassionate God is, I feel, both comforting and reassuring. Now let's think about the healing of the man with leprosy. He approaches Jesus humbly. "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." It's a request, not a demand. So what are the links between these two events? On the face of it, nothing. Both men came from very different strata of society. But what unites them is that they were both considered outcasts, both unclean. Both men approached Jesus humbly, not demanding, but requesting, a lesson we might like to learn. And above all, the two accounts are linked by the faith of both the man with leprosy and the centurion. And what do these two accounts of healing say to us about Jesus? That he is a healer who responds to anyone in need who approaches him in faith. That he comes for all people, not just the chosen ones who rejected him. And that the authority he has been given from God is one of care and compassion. Amen.